The day I found that letter, I thought my heart would stop. It was not written in English, and it was not written in Dutch. It was written in the language of a love I thought had died 30 years ago. My husband Elias Yoder, the most God-fearing man in our community, had been living a lie. And the woman he could not let go was standing right in front of me at the supper table every single night. I read those words over and over, every single night, right in front of me. I looked up from that letter and I stared across the kitchen at the faces I had known for decades. My daughter Esther was at the table, my beautiful Esther. She was 32 years old. She had come to us as a baby, an orphan, a child whose parents had died in a fire, or so I was told. I had held her in my arms when she was barely 3 months old. I had fed her. I had rocked her to sleep. I had watched her take her first steps. I had braided her hair and sewn her dresses and held her when she cried. She was my daughter in every way that mattered. But now, for the first time in 32 years, I looked at my daughter, and I wondered if everything I had been told about her was a lie. Could Esther be the child from that letter? Could the woman my husband could not let go be sitting right across from me at this very table? I studied her face, the shape of her eyes, the curve of her jaw, the way she tilted her head when she laughed. She looked like Elias. She had always looked like Elias. I had always said it was just a coincidence. A gift from God. A reminder of her father's love even though they shared no blood. But now I was not so sure. I watched Elias watch her. The way his eyes lingered on her just a moment too long. The way he softened when she spoke. The way he always asked about her day with a tenderness he never showed anyone else. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was letting a letter twist my mind. But the thought would not leave me. Esther was the right age. Esther had no known parents. Esther looked like Elias. It could be her. It could very well be her. And if it was her, then my entire life had been built on a foundation of lies. That night I could not sleep. I lay beside Elias and I listened to his breathing. So steady, so peaceful. I wanted to shake him awake. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to ask him why he looked at Esther that way. I wanted to ask him if there was a secret he had been hiding for 30 years. But I said nothing. I lay there in the darkness and I let the questions burn inside me like a fire. The next day I began my investigation. I did not confront Elias. Not yet. I needed to know the full truth first. I started with my mother-in-law Hannah, who lived in the Dottie house. She was old and her memory was failing, but sometimes she would speak of the past with surprising clarity. I visited her one afternoon, and I brought her favorite pie. I sat beside her and I said, "Ma'am Hannah, I need to ask you something about Elias." She looked at me with those cloudy eyes and she said, "What is it, Sarah?" I said, "Who is Miriam?" She dropped her spoon. Her hands started trembling. She said, "Where did you hear that name?" I said, "I found letters in the barn. I know there was a woman. I know there was a child. I need to know what happened to that child." She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Sarah, some things are better left buried." I said, "Ma'am Hannah, I have a right to know. That child might be sitting at my table right now. That child might be my own daughter. I need to know if Esther is that child." She started crying then, silent tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. She said, "Sarah, you do not understand what you are asking." I said, "Ma'am Hannah, I have come here hoping you will tell me I am wrong. I have come here hoping you will say Esther is not the child from the letter. I have come here hoping you will tell me I am losing my mind." She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and she looked me in the eyes. Then she nodded. She said, "Yes, Sarah. Esther is Miriam's daughter. Esther is Elias' blood. Esther is the child we told you was an orphan." I had come hoping she would tell me I was wrong. Instead, she nodded. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life shattered into 1,000 pieces. I pulled my hand away. I said, "You let me raise her. You let me love her. You let me believe she was a stranger's child. And all along she was his. She was his and I was just the woman who raised her. I was just the woman who did the work while everyone else kept the secret." Hannah said, "Sarah, we did not mean to hurt you. We thought we were protecting you. We thought we were protecting Esther. We were afraid of what the community would do. We were afraid of the shame. We were afraid of the bishop." I said, "You were afraid of shame. But you were not afraid of lying to me for 30 years. You were not afraid of stealing my choice. You were not afraid of letting me build a life on a foundation that was never real." I walked out of the dotty house and I did not look back. I went straight to the barn and I opened the tin box again. This time I found a fourth letter hidden in the lining of the box. It was from Miriam herself. It was written just before she gave birth. It said, Elias, I know you will not be able to keep our child. I know your father will take her away. But I beg you, do not let her disappear into the world alone. Find a way to keep her close. Find a way to watch over her. Even if you cannot raise her as your own, make sure she is safe. Make sure she is loved. That is all I ask. I read that letter and I understood. Elias had not just abandoned his daughter. He had found a way to keep her. He had brought her into our home. He had watched her grow. He had loved her from a distance. He had given her a life without ever claiming her, and I had been the unwitting vessel of his plan. I had raised his daughter with Miriam's blessing. I had been used. But the worst part was not that I had been used. The worst part was that loving Esther had never been a lie. She was my daughter. I had loved her with my whole heart for 30 years. That love was real. That love was true. What was not real was the choice I had been denied. What was not real was the truth I had been robbed of. I had not been given a choice to decide whether I could love a child born of my husband's secret past. I had been given a child and told to love her without question, and I had. I had loved her completely. But that did not make the betrayal any smaller. That did not make the theft any less painful. I confronted Elias that evening. I walked into the kitchen and I placed the letters on the table in front of him. I said, Esther is your daughter, your real daughter, your daughter with Miriam. He looked at the letters and he looked at me and I waited for him to react. I waited for him to cry. I waited for him to apologize, but he did not react. He did not cry. He did not apologize. He just sat there in absolute silence. I said, did you hear me, Elias? Esther is your daughter, still nothing. I stared at him and I felt the confusion building inside me. I said, Elias, why are you not surprised? He looked down at his hands. He could not meet my eyes. Then he said, because I already knew. I already knew for 20 years. I felt the air leave my lungs. The room started spinning. I said, you knew for 20 years and you never told me. He said, I found out 10 years after we adopted her. I found the records in my father's Bible. I discovered that Esther was Anna. Miriam had named her Anna after her grandmother. I discovered that my father had arranged everything so that I would raise my own daughter without ever knowing it. And I was too afraid to tell you. I was too afraid you would hate me. I was too afraid you would hate her. I was too afraid the community would destroy us all. I said, 20 years, Elias. 20 years you let me believe I was raising a stranger's child. 20 years you watched me love her, and you never told me she was yours. He said, I was a coward. I was a broken, terrified coward who did not know how to tell the woman he loved that his entire life was a lie. I stood there looking at him. I said, you keep saying you were afraid of losing me, but you never gave me the choice to decide whether I would stay. You took my choice away. You took my voice away. You took my right to know the truth about my own daughter. You say you were protecting me, but you were really protecting yourself. You were afraid. And because you were afraid, you made me live in the dark for 20 years. I did not wait for him to answer. I did not wait for him to explain. I walked out of the kitchen and I went to the bedroom. I closed the door and I sat on the edge of the bed and I wept. I wept for the years that had been stolen from me. I wept for the trust that had been broken. I wept for the woman I had been before I knew the truth. And I let Elias sit in the kitchen alone, facing the consequences of his silence. The next morning I went to Esther. I knew I had to tell her. She deserved the truth even if it destroyed our family. I found her in the kitchen making breakfast. I sat down beside her and I took her hands. I said, Esther, I have something to tell you, something I should have told you years ago. She looked at me with confusion. I said, you are not an orphan, your mother is alive, her name is Miriam, and your father is Elias, he is your real father, you have been his daughter all along. I waited for her to cry. I waited for her to scream. I waited for her world to shatter the way mine had shattered. But she did not cry, she did not scream, she did not react the way I expected. She just sat there in silence for a very long time. Then she looked at me and she said, Ma'am, I know, I have known for years. I stared at her. I said, what do you mean you have known for years? She said, I found a letter in the barn when I was 16. I read it. I understood what it meant. I knew that Elias was my father. I knew that Miriam was my mother. I knew that you were not my birth mother. I did not say anything because I did not want to hurt you. I did not say anything because I did not want to lose you. You are my mother. You are the only mother I have ever known. I did not need a different one. I said, Esther, I am so sorry. I am so sorry you had to carry this alone. She looked at me and I saw something I had never seen before. I saw anger. I saw a deep, simmering rage that had been buried for years. She said, Ma'am, do not apologize to me. I did not carry this alone. I carried it with Elias. He knew that I knew, we never spoke about it, but we both knew, we both carried it together. And I understood why he did not tell you. I understood his fear. But I never understood why everyone in this family believed they had the right to decide which truths I was strong enough to hear. I was 16 when I found out. 16 years old, and I had to pretend I did not know. I had to smile at supper. I had to call him Deed when I knew he was my real father. I had to keep the secret to protect the people who were supposed to protect me. And I am tired, ma'am. I am so tired of carrying a secret that was never mine to carry. I held her in my arms and I let her cry. I let her release 16 years of suppressed anger and pain. I held her and I said, Esther, I am so sorry. I am so sorry I did not know. I am so sorry I was not strong enough to see the truth. I am so sorry I made you carry this alone. She pulled back and she looked at me. She said, You did not make me carry it alone, ma'am. You did not know. I cannot be angry at you for not knowing. I can be angry at the people who did know and chose to stay silent. I can be angry at Hannah. I can be angry at Elias. I can be angry at the community that made them so afraid of the truth that they built a wall of lies around our family. But I cannot be angry at you. You are the one who loved me without conditions. You are the one who raised me as your own. You are the one who gave me a mother's heart. And I will always love you for that. I held her and I cried with her. And in that moment I understood something I had not understood before. The love between Esther and me was real. It had always been real. It did not matter that I was not her birth mother. It did not matter that she had a different bloodline. What mattered was that I had raised her. What mattered was that she was my daughter in every way that truly counted. What mattered was that we had found each other even in the middle of a lie. And that love was stronger than the truth. That love was stronger than any secret. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of healing. 3 years of honesty. 3 years of slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. Miriam passed away 2 years after we discovered the truth. She died quietly in her sleep. She never got to see Esther again. She never got to hold her daughter in her arms. But before she died, she sent me a letter. It was short and it was simple. It said only one thing. Sarah, thank you for loving the daughter I could not raise. I read that letter and I wept. I wept for Miriam. I wept for the life she had been forced to leave behind. I wept for the child she had been forced to give away. And I wept for the love that had survived despite everything. I keep that letter in my Bible. I read it sometimes when I need to remember why I chose forgiveness over anger, why I chose love over bitterness, why I chose to let go of the past and embrace the future. Because that is what God asks of us. He asks us to forgive. He asks us to love. He asks us to be honest with ourselves and with each other. And I am honest now. I am honest about who I am. I am honest about who Esther is. I am honest about the pain and the joy and the messy, beautiful chaos of our family. And Elias is honest too. It took time. It took years of painful conversations and sleepless nights. And moments where I wondered if our marriage could survive. But we survived. We survived because we chose each other. We survived because we chose to fight for our family. We survived because we chose love over pride. Elias sits beside me every night on the porch. We watch the sunset together. We hold hands like we are young again. And we know the truth. The truth is not always easy. The truth is not always kind. But the truth is always better than a lie. And the truth is this. The woman my husband could not let go was never Miriam. It was Esther. It was the daughter he had been forced to abandon. It was the daughter he had brought into our home without ever claiming. It was the daughter he had watched grow from across the room for 30 years. Every Sunday, Esther sits across from Elias at our supper table. Sometimes I catch him looking at her. 30 years ago, that look would have frightened me. I would have thought he was looking at someone else, someone from his past, someone he loved more than me. But now I understand. He is not looking at the woman he could not let go. He is looking at the daughter he was never allowed to hold. And this time, no one can take her away. The day I found that letter, I thought my heart would stop. I thought my marriage was over. I thought the woman my husband loved was someone else. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. The woman my husband could not let go was not a rival. She was not a threat. She was not someone who stole my husband's heart. She was the child he had been forced to abandon. She was the daughter he had watched grow from across the room. She was the daughter he had loved in secret. She was the daughter who had been sitting at our table every single night. My daughter, our daughter. I have learned something that took me 30 years to understand. Some secrets are not meant to stay buried. Some lies are not meant to survive. And sometimes the most painful truth is the only thing that can set you free. The woman at my supper table was never an enemy. She was a daughter looking for a father. She was a family waiting to be whole. And now she is mine. She is ours. And every Sunday when she sits across from me and she calls me ma'am, I know that the years of silence were worth it. The years of pain were worth it. Because love does not end when secrets are revealed. Love begins when we finally choose to be honest. And I am honest now. I am honest with Elias. I am honest with Esther. I am honest with myself. And I am honest with the daughter who came home. That is my story. A story of betrayal and grief, and a love that survived against all odds. A story of a husband who could not let go and a wife who refused to give up. I do not know what your story is, but I know this. If you are carrying a secret, if you are carrying a weight that is crushing your soul, do not carry it alone. Find the truth, speak the truth. And let the truth set you free. Because life is too short to live in the shadow of a ghost. Life is too short to love with half a heart. And the people sitting at your table right now deserve all of you. Every broken piece, every hidden corner, every beautiful, messy, human part, that is the only way to truly love. That is the only way to truly live. Elias is beside me now as I finish writing this. He is older, his hands are gnarled, his back is bent, but his eyes are clear. He looks at me and he smiles. And I know that the ghost is gone, the secret is gone, and all that remains is us. Two old people who have been through the fire and come out stronger. Two old people who finally know what it means to be free. The woman my husband could not let go is not a rival. She is not a threat. She is a gift. She is the child who brought us together. She is the daughter who healed our family. And I thank God every single day for bringing her home. For giving us a second chance. For teaching me that love is not about possession. Love is about release. Love is about forgiveness. Love is about choosing each other even when the truth hurts. And I choose Elias. I choose him every single day, not because he is perfect, not because our marriage has been easy, but because he is mine, and I am his, and that is enough, that is more than enough. That is everything. Every Sunday Esther sits across from Elias at our supper table. Sometimes I catch him looking at her. 30 years ago that look would have frightened me, but now I understand. He isn't looking at the woman he couldn't let go. He's looking at the daughter he was never allowed to hold. And this time, no one can take her away. I learned that love is not about possession. It is about release. It is about letting go of the past and embracing the present. It is about forgiving the people who hurt you and choosing to love them anyway. That is what Miriam taught me. She was the woman who loved Elias before I did. She was the woman who bore his child. She was the woman who trusted me to raise that child without even knowing me. That takes a kind of love I never understood until now. She gave up everything so that her daughter could have a life. She gave up her love so that Elias could have a family. She gave up her child so that I could have a daughter. That is not betrayal. That is sacrifice. And I am grateful. I am grateful for the letter that broke my heart. I am grateful for the truth that shattered my world. Because without it, I would never have known the full depth of my daughter's love. I would never have known the strength of my husband's heart. I would never have known the power of my own forgiveness. And I would never have known that even after all the pain, love can still bloom in the most broken soil. So if you are carrying a burden of your own, if you are holding on to a past that hurts, let it go. Let it go and trust in God. Trust in the future. Trust in the beauty of today. Because life is too short to live in the shadow of a ghost. Life is too short to not love with your whole heart. And that is the lesson Miriam taught me. That is the lesson I will carry to my grave. Every Sunday Esther sits across from Elias at our supper table. Sometimes I catch him looking at her. 30 years ago that look would have frightened me. I would have thought he was looking at someone else. Someone from his past. Someone he loved more than me. But now I understand. He is not looking at the woman he could not let go. He is looking at the daughter he was never allowed to hold. And this time no one can take her away. The secret is out, the truth is free, and our family is whole. The woman my Amish husband could not let go was not my enemy, she was my teacher. She was the reason he learned to love again. She was the reason I learned to forgive again. And I thank her. From the bottom of my soul I thank her. Because without her, I would never have known the depth of my husband's heart. I would never have known the strength of my own forgiveness. I would never have known that even after all the pain, love can still bloom in the most broken soil. So if you are carrying a burden of your own, let it go. Let it go and trust in God. Trust in the future. Trust in the beauty of today. Because life is too short to live in the shadow of a ghost. Life is too short to not love with your whole heart. And that is the lesson Miriam taught me. That is the lesson I will carry to my grave. Every Sunday Esther sits across from Elias at our supper table. Sometimes I catch him looking at her. But now I understand. He is not looking at the woman he could not let go. He is looking at the daughter he was never allowed to hold. And this time no one can take her away.